Hello, this is John Davis, known on YouTube as Khan Dawi, that's in Hebrew, and in English, known as King David, and also as Prester John. And I am also been installed as your new Chief Justice of this earth realm. So, I'm picking up somewhat where I left off, and I think in the last video I mentioned that in this coming video, which is the one here now, that I would be speaking on the symbology, the mythological, metaphorical, and allegorical nature of the characters that comprise or make up the so-called New Testament. And the reason why I refer to it as so-called is because they are originally Hebrew scriptures that was taken and reworked, repackaged, and presented to the world as if they were some writings that belonged to religion. And while they say that, this so-called main character in those writings, which they label as Jesus Christ, there never was a person that existed by that name, because those characters happen to be mythological characters, allegorical characters. In other words, they are symbols presented as people, and those characters are recognized to be states and stages of consciousness in man, in woman, prior to their enlightenment. Right. So I decided first, before I get into interpreting those characters, I decided first to lay a foundation that comes from the original text by which much of those teachings were drawn from, because that's a prophecy. It's not an actual event that took place, although it's been manipulated and changed and taught as a literal event that existed as a historical way of life that had passed for the characters that's represented in that book, which is a deception. So let's go to the book of Isaiah, some of the older writings in which that prophecy was taken from. So I'm at Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, chapter 53, and I'll read down to about 7 or 8 chapters, 7 or 8 verses, 6 to 8 verses, and I get a feel for where to stop at. So let's read here now. Who has believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of dry ground. He has no form nor comeliness. And we shall see him. There is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid as if it was our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. That sounds like me there. Surely he has borne our grief and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Now, when you read in the New Testament, and we'll go there, you read about a crucifixion. And there's a claim that this so-called Jesus Christ came about 2,000 years ago. Now, if you are keen and you take notes, and you don't have to be that keen, because a lot of that deception is so obvious, and why people who claim to be light workers and seers and teachers, kingdom teachers or spiritual teachers or whatever you might call them, why they don't have enough discernment to see the many, many contradictions there is beyond me. But that crucifixion and this character that they've transformed into a so-called person, this is the reference point, what I just read, that all of that was created from. And then they set that off into some writing of the Hebrew, and made a death, a burial, resurrection, and crucifixion out of a prophecy. And that prophecy was of my coming. This passage that I just read was a reference of me. And where it said they hid right here, let's read this. He is despised and rejected of men. Right. That was easily seen while I was being attacked repeatedly and for years. Now, those of you who saw the attacks, that was just for the group that was attacking me then, but I've been attacked all my life. And one while you all call me resilient, which while you were looking and observing those attacks, yeah, I did demonstrate some resilience. But there were times earlier on, back in the 90s, that I wasn't quite so resilient. I was attacked by a wizard that actually, he hit me so hard that my breath cut off 4 times. I thought I might have died. I really did. And not the symbolic deaths here that I've experienced, the first and second death, although those are some serious challenges to go through. It's nothing easy about the dying. I tell you that now. It's not easy. But I was attacked by this wizard, and I tried to shake it, but that attack drew all of the frequency that I was experiencing inside. It drew it out of me. I didn't experience it anymore for 3 years and 10 months. I kept up with it. But I kept what you call faith. And that word needs to be discussed some to the word faith, because that's a word that came from this so-called Christianity. I even hate to call that name because I don't want to validate it, because I know it has no basis. Because their foundation is founded on a lie. As if this so-called character, Jesus Christ, descended from me, descended from the house of David. It did not come from me. And the picture that you see of this so-called character is just a name. It was never a person. Because there was no J or C. Those symbols didn't exist 2,000 years ago. In fact, they just came about during the 16th century when they attacked us here on this continent. Right there, I believe the first attack was in Jerusalem, which is the country today is called Peru. But it was Jerusalem where our temple existed, which is now, it's been discovered. It's over there growing up in the rainforest. They've started digging it out, and they've discovered the corporate area, and I think some of the residential area too now, but it's so huge that it'll take maybe 4 or 5 decades to actually clear it away. But they let it grow up because, as it says in the book of Psalms 83, that they were making attempts to remove our nation, that we be heard of no more. They tried to wipe us out. And from my references here, from my studies, they slaughtered maybe 150 to 200 million of us, Hebrews, right here on this land and in other places in the world. So, in your New Testament, they somehow took this passage here and rewrote this with a different language, even though that is a prophecy, but it's not in the literal sense that they've written it. Because the word crucifixion wasn't even possible for it to exist. Right? It didn't exist. Now, one of the first things, if you are enlightened, that you should notice that even though that's Hebrew writing and it's a claim that that character descended from the Hebrews, the house of David, that's the house that I'm from, and I am David. In other lifetimes too, I'm David. That's who I am. And I have that David frequency. And the Sphinx over there is a memorial of me. And you notice that it has a body of a lion. That lion is the symbol of the Judah tribe. That's our symbol. And you notice is the character of the person that's sculpted there is standing on the lion, right? Which is symbolic of overcoming the animal nature in you, and at the same time, it expresses the fierceness of this tribe, right? Because we, to the tribe of Judah, they made a J, it was and added it to our actual name, which was Judah. U-D-A-H instead of J-U-D-A-H, right? And so we were put here to rule the earth. And when you're given that kind of power, favorite like that from the Creator, automatically that draws enemies. Even in your own family, you got enemies. In your own tribal family, right? You have enemies. And so, because Esau, we're from the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and so-called Jacob, when in Hebrew, it's Jacob would be referred to as Yakubi. They always use the one letter switch when they switch a name from English, from Hebrew to English. They use a one letter rule. But this is the foundation of that so-called crucifixion, which has nothing to do with it. It says, notice here, it says smitten of God, right? That's the Creator. I call it the Creator. I don't use the term God because I know this is what the colonizers put in throughout our writing. And actually the word God is a spell cast upon the language. That's what it is. Because the Creator is responsible for keeping existence operating. It is the law. It's not a person. It's not a so-called Christ. It's the law. That's what caused the flowers to bloom, the plants to grow, your heartbeat to beat, your liver, lungs, kidney, all of that to function. It's a law. And we say we recognize law by the ability that it's able to maintain the same effect without end. We recognize law in music on the musical scale because the notes always remain what they are. Those sounds never change. Your instrument might fall out of attunement with them, but when you correct that attunement, you go right back there. C will sound like C, B will sound like B, A sound like A, G sound like G, and they all will likewise fall into their respective sound or tone, right? And so this is the foundation for that so-called crucifixion. But you can see where it says smitten of God, not crucified by any soldiers, any Roman soldiers. All that was added because that was a prophecy about my coming. And the fact that they violated the literary rules of standards, ethical and moral standards, by removing all of the proper names that were Hebrew, and yet claiming that it was from the Hebrew, but yet they removed all of the names, the Hebrew name, and inserted English names. And there is no record. And then in one scripture there in the so-called New Testament, they say, search the scriptures, for in them for they testify of me. For in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they that testify of me. There is no testimony anywhere about a Jesus Christ. No kind of way, because that's an English name. We had no J nor a C in our language. And you find them constantly, J's and C's throughout. And then you have to wonder, how much did we miss with them changing these letters? And you're not going to get, when a colonizer, his whole job is to take stuff If he come in and take your houses and land, your businesses and all of your inventions, and write his names on them, don't you know he gonna take your scriptures and put what he want in them? Let them reflect the same bitterness and greed that he has in him, for in the same way that he took what everything else that belonged to you. That's right. He's not going to give you the truth. He'll tell you he's from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they were melanated people, and he's so-called white. I beg to differ. I think they are more pinkish, light pinkish, and a little blend of somewhat white in it. Kind of smudgy white, not literally exact white, but smudgy. Right, so pinkish, smudgy white. Right, and that's probably because they lived in the caves and those genes adapted to those conditions. No sun getting in, and so maybe that's what created cancer in them, because they brought the cancer to this planet. We didn't have any cancer here. In fact, they were writing to tell you those Europeans, and they weren't really from Europe proper. They were from a little country town there, country that we call Saxony. It wasn't more than 100. It wasn't more than 1,000,000. But they've come in and got hold to this land of milk and honey, and they've gotten fat, and now there's about 800 million of them from probably less than 1 million. Right? So this is the foundation. This is where they got that from. So, but we see that it's making more reference to me being smitten. That's a hard blow, right? And that's what these deaths are. They are hard blows that you can't stop. And that's what the ascension is. The ascension is tough. It's I might have made it look easy. I've heard some say he do it with ease. Well, now it's easier, at certain points and certain levels. Yeah, it gets easier. But I tell you, the first 7 or 8 years, I'll tell you when it started slacking up. I got into it about 16 or 17, 2016 or 2017. That's when I started ascending, that I could notice, outwardly. And it was slow because I had to go through the Kundalini first. And I wasn't aware of either one that I had to go through. Even though I was enlightened, just because you become enlightened, you don't know everything. You grow. The scriptures say you grow in grace and in the knowledge. Right? But I was enlightened when you all saw me. Like when I came here, I had already gone through the first and second death. But let's get back to the point here. The point is, the Creator gave me a hard blow. Smitten. Right? I was smitten of the Creator. Not hung on a cross or nothing about a Roman, because that never existed. All that is deception. That's plagiarism. Right? These folks steal and do some of everything else. You think they're going to regard our writing? No, they're going to snap it out of the way. Snatch it out of the way. They don't want you to have it. They don't mind you having this now, but always when they are running or stealing, they always leave something hanging, right? It's always that lead tracks right back to them. But I'm gonna let it go this time. But anyway, this is the foundation of that teaching about the crucifixion, and their inventing that character called Jesus Christ, because I'm the one to come. I don't have to prove it. It's obvious. So there wasn't ever a first coming. That was our prophecy that was written concerning me, my coming. Understand that clearly, because that's the truth. I am the light of the world. It was prophesied that I was coming. I was going to be a prophet even before I was born. My dad said that lady prophesied that before I was born. Right. And so know that there was not a historical event that took place. That was a prophecy that this religion got and switched it around and created a name, and they call it Jesus Christ, and then call him the Messiah, when in our Hebrew language it was the Hamashiach. That's me. One come here to enlighten and to uplift and to heal the people. Right. That's what I'm here for. And there's nobody coming after me. So this is the New Testament represents a prophecy of characters, which those characters happen to be your inner states and stages of consciousness. They are not people. And I know I said on this video, but it'll be, I got to lay this firm foundation first. It'll be this video and maybe possibly another one until I get this foundation down pat to carry you through these disciples so you can understand what you're dealing with here. Because this is not a historical document in terms of somebody lived and died and not anymore. No, there never was anybody living at all. This is just the way the prophecy came out. Because you really can't teach inner states of consciousness too well unless you give them some kind of physical allegory or material state that you can speak of in allegorical terms. Right, that's all that was here. All right, take care and take it easy.